Okay, well, this is my son Jared, and I'm the dad, John, and we happen to be in my garage where I spend too much of my time, my wife tells me, but I like it out here. I've kind of fixed it up according to what I'm comfortable with and stuff that I really like and enjoy looking at. So this is my comfort zone out here. Right here we have a 1931 Buick, or excuse me, right here we have a 1931 Chevy pickup truck. I've had it since I was 12 years old, and I spent a lot of time restoring it. Right now it needs a new radiator, so I'm waiting on getting one rebuilt so I can put it in. And then over here we have a 1931 Buick. This car I've had since Jared was a wee little boy. It's about 20 years old
Yeah.
that I've had it here, or 20 years that we've had it. Haven't done too much with it. We've driven it around, but I've had a little bit of engine problem and electrical problems with it, so it spends a lot of its time sitting here.
And when was the last time we had it running?
Probably when you were about 5 years old. We took it to a show in Racine.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that when you went up and got the trophy.
I do. We got. We'll have to show that later. We got that somewhere down in the basement.
Yeah.
But so this one is neat because you have a couple 1931s, but this one specifically is the rumble seat, right?
Yeah, this one has the rumble seat on. This is a 90 series, so it has 132-inch wheelbase. It's got a straight 8 in it, where the pickup truck has a straight six-cylinder engine in it with overhead valves in both. Buick always had overhead valves, and also Chevy for a long time had overhead valves. So that's what they were known for at that time. And I originally got this car from Massachusetts, and we had it shipped out here, bought it off of Hemmings. And like I said, I haven't done too much because I've got a lot of other stuff that I've been working on, and we can show you the rest of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's go around, see the other side of the car, show them the rumble seat, and then move on to the rest of the garage.
Okay. All right, as we're moving around the car here, I'll show you some more of my shop in here. You can see I've collected a lot of things over the years. Got an old gas pump here, got an old oil tank there. I've got some wooden wheels here, and then we come over to this area over here where I've got some of my machinery. Of course, you got your toolboxes. Everybody's got to have a toolbox in the garage. And then I've got two of these Atlas milling machines, which I use to make small parts. They asked me why I have two. Well, I had gotten one from my dad and rebuilt it, and then all of a sudden I saw another one for sale. So if you got one, you might as well have two. And that took up the whole bench area here. So that's where we're at with this stuff. Eventually I want to get a Bridgeport mill so I can do bigger parts, but these work out pretty good for small items. And I've made a lot of little brackets and levers for the cars.
I was going to say, it's pretty nice because you really can't find good reproductions or good, quality used parts for these cars nowadays.
Well, a lot of them are made out of pot metal, and so what happens over years, the pot metal deteriorates and breaks down, and so then you have to go have them made, or if you're fortunate enough to be able to do it yourself, you make them yourself. You try to make them as exact as possible to the originals. Use the same dimensions and things like that. And it's worked out pretty good for me. But there are places where they sell reproduction parts. You've got to look for them pretty hard to find them nowadays, especially on these older cars, because there aren't as much of a need for the parts, because most of these cars that have been restored are all completed, and there aren't too many left that really need the parts, so there isn't a big inventory or call for the parts. So we just kind of make what we can get done here and go from there.
Awesome. Well, yep, let's make our way around the car.
All right, as we move through the garage, this here are seats to one of my other cars, the rear seats. And these I plan on rebuilding this winter and hopefully getting them back into the car if I can find matching interior to what I already have. On the table here, we've got a plastic container here, which I use to soak my rusty parts in, the smaller rusty parts. And it's a rust remover. It works really good because not only does it remove the rust, but it is also a rust inhibitor. So once the rust is done being removed from the part, you can take it out and just let it dry. And then from there, you can go paint it, and it won't rust for quite a while. They say it'll stand up for about a year without rusting. This is one of the parts right here that I'm working on. So that's what's up with this on the table. Now you can see the other side of the 31 Buick Coupe. Like I say, it's got a 132-inch wheelbase, so it is a large car for its time. It's a 90 series. It's 104 horsepower. It's got a 3-speed manual transmission. It's 344 cubic inch engine in it. And these cars do move pretty well down the road. I mean, the ones that I drive, I can get them up to 55 miles an hour, but I'm more comfortable about running them about 40, 45 miles an hour, and they'll just drive all day. The gas mileage is pretty poor on these cars. You know, if you get 8 miles to a gallon, you're lucky. So you end up stopping a lot for gas. So I'm assuming I'm in the shot, and right here is the golf club door for the Buick Coupe, and over behind here is the rumble seat. My son Jared is lifting it open so you can see where your mother-in-law can sit, your wife can sit, your kids can sit, any place to keep them out of the way while you're trying to concentrate on driving down the road. Because this car here, it needs a lot of attention when you're driving in it. It's not like the modern cars that do a lot of thinking on their own. You got to do all the thinking for it. So you're constantly listening to the engine, the revs, the steering. You got to pay attention to the steering because it doesn't react really fast. With braking, it's all mechanical brakes. So when we do brake, we have to make sure that what's ever in front of us is far enough in front of us so that we come to a complete stop before we get there. Especially at the higher speeds, and if you're going down a hill, it gets really scary at some points. But so far we haven't had too much trouble. Just scared my wife and had her scream a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. No big deal. We've all survived it. But yeah, they are a joy to drive. It is much different than a modern car, that's for sure. But let's move our way around, shall we?
Okay, we've moved the camera around. So now you're at the garage door of the original garage to the house. It's attached. And what I ended up doing was getting my wife's permission to add another garage onto the house. I told her she could have a parking spot in the garage in the wintertime if she'd let me build a garage. Well, that lasted about 2 years. As any guy with a garage knows, you never have enough space, and you have a tendency to collect a lot of things. So it's always a battle to keep the garage from becoming a storage spot and versus a work area. So I'm constantly shuffling things around, trying to get condensed. And a year ago, I bought an enclosed trailer, and so I've moved some stuff out to the enclosed trailer because I was running out of space. The next thing is, hopefully my son will buy a house so I can start filling his garage. So this is the back side of the 31 Buick that we showed you before with the rumble seat. Now I'm moving out into the new addition on the garage. Okay, here we are in the addition garage to my house. So at one time, I think I had 7 cars in here. Right now we're down to 5, so that should give me some working area. And as you can see, I've accumulated stuff out here. Like I said before, if you have one, more is even better. And I've got 2 31 Buicks out here in this garage. These both are running cars that I try to drive every week in the summertime. We're getting here, it's October, it's getting a little cold out. I had the red one over there out this weekend. So we'll see, as long as it doesn't snow, we're always good to go in the cars. I like to drive them. I mean, I have most of my fun is working on them, but I feel like I really accomplished something when I get them out on the road. All right, Jared joined me back out here.
Thanks to
In the
Movie
extra
Magic,
garage.
I'm here.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, these are 2 more 31 Buicks, and this one I've had since I was 29. So that's 35 years ago. I've had this 35 years, and this one, we probably had this one about 15 years.
Yeah, because I remember picking this up with you guys.
Yeah, this one came out of north side of Chicago. I bought this, and this one here I bought in Michigan, in Traverse City. There was a gentleman that had it for sale, and we drove around the lake, Michigan, and bought it from him. So, like I say, both of these are drivers. I do little work on them here and there. I am not one to take a car completely apart and do a complete restoration on it. I like to have them together as much as possible and fix what needs to be fixed, because like I said, I like to drive them. So it's very important to me that I keep them together as much as possible, and that way I get to enjoy them both ways. Sometimes if you take a car completely apart, you get frustrated because eventually all you see is a pile of parts in your garage, and it looks like a pretty big task. And a lot of guys have a tendency to give up, especially if you take them all apart. Then you finally find out how much it's going to cost you to put it back together. The easy part is taking it apart. The hard part is getting it all back together and coordinating all that and finding the right vendors to deal with to get what you need done and the quality of work that you want done on these cars. So I just take my time. I'm retired, so I'm out here, 3 to 8 hours just about every day. That makes my wife happy because I'm not always in her hair. She just, comes and yells for me when it's lunchtime, supper time. And sometimes she comes out when she hears a bang to check if I'm still alive. But otherwise, this is where I spend a lot of my life, and I enjoy it. And I enjoy sharing it with people. I have people come over and we talk cars and take them for rides and things like that.
So as far as, these are all original, except for 1 or 2 items. You want to talk about that? The changes you've made and why you've made them?
Yes, I am one of those guys that like things original as you can get them. I don't like to alternate things very much. The only thing that I have done is I've put electronic ignition on the cars, because originally they had dual points, and it's very, very hard to get those things to work perfectly and timing. So I changed it out and put electronic ignition in, and I'd say it's increased the power of the cars about 50%. I mean, it's quite amazing. I couldn't believe it how much more power I had and acceleration I had with doing that.
And it's a nice creature comfort. it's nice not to fill up those points because those things were miserable to work.
Yes, because sometimes they would work just fine, and then all of a sudden they'd get out of whack, and the car would end up backfiring and after firing, and you're just scratching your head and getting so frustrated with them. Now I don't have any of those problems anymore. And they just basically screw right into where the points were, and you know, it didn't have to do any modifications whatsoever. So it was an easy swap out.
And then both these cars are almost the same in spec, correct?
Yes, both of these cars are 5-passenger coupes, which Buick at that time did not have a 2-door sedan. They had the 4-door sedan, and then the Roadster, convertible, the coupe, and the Phaeton, and they also made a limousine. And instead of the 2-door sedan, they had the 5-passenger coupe, which is kind of a rare body style. But amazingly, you see a lot of these Buick 5-passenger coupes around. It's surprising how many they are still existent. And this weekend I had the red car off, like I said earlier, and I had trouble with the starter. I think what happened was that the starter switch has gone bad, and also the battery is getting old. So I'm gonna have to replace both of those. I had to have my son come over, and we put a strap on the front of it, and I dropped the clutch to pop it to start it, and I'd say within 50 feet we had the car running. I mean, these cars are pretty tough as long as you take care of them. They need a lot of maintenance, but they're very durable cars, and I enjoy riding in them and driving them.
Awesome. I think, is that pretty much all of the garage tour?
Well, unless you want to go back, we can go back and look at what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, let's go
And
check
see-
that out.
Okay, here we are at the back of the 231 Buicks, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the work that I'm doing right now. If you look at the red car, you can see that this one has a trunk mounted on it with a trunk rack. And if you look at this other car, you can see that it doesn't have a trunk and it doesn't have a trunk rack. Well, I'm in the process of redoing this section of the car. I straightened out the brackets for the bumpers, and then I took these brackets for the trunk rack, and I took them in and had them powder coated. So now what I'm working on is, I probably stepped out of frame here, but I'm working on the trunk rack itself. And it's painted black. This is originally the way it looked. So I stripped all the paint out, and then I took it and put it in my acid dip, and I took all the rust off of it. Well, when I found out what I had left, there was a lot of pitting in the trunk rack metal itself. So what I'm in the process of doing is filling all that in with silver solder. So I go over the surface, put a thin layer of silver solder over the top, and then I will file that and sand that smooth to get rid of the pits. And it's going to be a little bit of a process. It'll probably take me a couple weeks to get it to where I like it. But then after I get it done, I'll probably end up painting it, because I won't be able to have this powder coated, because the temperature of the Sil-Floss, or the silver solder I should say, is below the temperature that they have the oven set at the powder coating place that I go to. So I'll probably just end up epoxy painting this somehow. I haven't gotten to that step yet, but we'll give it a whirl and see how it turns out. However it turns out, it's better than what it was. So we go with that. All right. Jared,
Yep.
since you're standing around looking handsome, why don't you go over and get the cart? The hobo cart is what my wife named this. and I'll show you what it is. I ended up buying this shopping cart for $5 at a swap meet. I had bought something really heavy, and I didn't want to drag it all the way through the swap meet area. So what I ended up doing was, I saw a guy there with some shopping carts. I said, how much you want for that shopping cart? And he said, $5. So I gave him $5, put my item in the shopping cart, and I pushed it along the aisleway. My wife said, what the heck you doing with a shopping cart? I said, well, you carry that item back to the car. I'm not going to. So then we brought it home, and it's become part of my tool projects.
It's a good mobile bench.
Yeah, it's a good mobile bench. I got a vise here so I can move that outside, and then I put all my clamps in the bottom of it, and we just kind of push that around. It's always nice to have things on wheels when you have a garage setting like this, because no matter where you put things, they're always in the wrong place when you need them or when you want to get to them. So I try to put everything on wheels so I can move it around to the spots that it works out the best for me. So that's about it for today.